Life, they say, is built on foundations. Some are made of concrete and steel, strong and unyielding. Others, however, are woven from something far more delicate: tradition, community, and the quiet, enduring strength of the human spirit. Our story begins in a place where these two worlds were about to collide, in a bustling city where ancient brick met gleaming glass, and where a man's simple, honest life was about to face an evaluation that threatened to shatter everything. David Miller lived by the rhythm of rising dough and the sun. His bakery, Miller's Hearth, was more than just a business. It was a sanctuary nestled in the heart of the city's oldest district. Its brick facade, worn smooth by generations of hands, exuded a warmth that drew people in like a comforting scent. Inside, the air was perpetually rich with the aroma of sourdough, cinnamon, and the faint sweet memory of countless stories shared over coffee and croissants. David, a man whose hands bore the flour dust of a lifetime of baking, moved with an easy grace honed by years of kneading, shaping, and perfecting his craft. His smile, though etched with a quiet resilience, was quick and genuine, especially when his gaze fell upon his daughter, Lily. Lily, a bright-eyed whirlwind of 7-year-old energy, was the true light of David's life. She lived with him in the modest apartment above the bakery, her laughter echoing through the creaking floorboards, a melody that kept his world in perfect harmony. Every afternoon after school, she would descend into the bakery, eager to help, or more often to offer her supervision to her father as he worked. For David, Lily wasn't just his child, she was his greatest masterpiece, a living testament to the values he held dear: kindness, integrity, and the simple, profound joy of making something beautiful with your own hands. Across town, in a world of polished chrome and towering skyscrapers, Olivia Hayes moved with the surgical precision of a predator. As a senior evaluator for Apex Developments, her reputation preceded her: sharp, pragmatic, and utterly results-oriented. Olivia saw the world in spreadsheets and profit margins. Emotions were variables, often messy, always inefficient. Her ambition was a finely honed blade, cutting through sentimentality to get straight to the bottom line. She was a woman who built empires, brick by cold, calculated brick, and she was very good at it. Her latest target, the historic district David called home. Apex Developments had a vision, a gleaming new luxury commercial project, and Miller's Hearth, quaint as it was, stood directly in the path of that vision. Olivia, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, arrived at Miller's Hearth just as the lunch rush was winding down. The scent of warm bread was a foreign anomaly in her sterile world, a quaint distraction. She carried a sleek tablet, a digital fortress of data and projections, her weapon in the silent war of acquisition. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the bakery not for its charm, but for its structural integrity, its footprint, its potential for demolition and subsequent redevelopment. David, wiping flour from his apron, looked up as the bell above the door chimed. He offered her a warm, flour-dusted smile. "Welcome to Miller's Hearth. What can I get for you?" Olivia's expression remained neutral. "No, thank you. I'm Olivia Hayes from Apex Developments. I'm here for a final property evaluation." Her voice was direct, articulate, leaving no room for pleasantries. David's smile faltered slightly. "Ah, yes, the evaluation. We're happy to cooperate. Just routine, I suppose?" He tried to sound casual, but a tiny knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He'd heard rumors about Apex, about their aggressive acquisition tactics in the neighboring blocks. He'd hoped his little bakery, a local landmark, would be overlooked.
Olivia merely nodded, already consulting her tablet. "Standard procedure, Mr. Miller. My apologies for the intrusion. I'll need access to the building's historical documents, any recent structural reports, and a tour of all floors, including the residential unit above." Her tone was brisk, a clear signal that this was business, not a social call. David, though a little deflated by her clinical demeanor, was nothing if not polite. "Of course, follow me. The paperwork is in my office, and I'll show you around." He gestured to a small, cluttered office at the back of the bakery, a room filled with ledgers, old photographs, and the lingering scent of parchment. As he led her through the space, David tried to infuse his words with the history of his family's bakery, of the generations who had worked these ovens, the stories baked into every loaf. Olivia listened, but her responses were terse, her gaze always fixed on the practicalities: load-bearing walls, electrical conduits, plumbing schematics. To her, this was merely a structure, a collection of assets. The soul of Miller's hearth remained invisible. Olivia's evaluation continued with relentless efficiency. She moved through the bakery with a detached air, her sharp eyes missing nothing in terms of construction, but seemingly blind to the worn warmth of the antique wooden counters or the intricate patterns in the original tile floor. David tried to engage her, to make her see beyond the brick and mortar. He pulled a freshly baked sourdough loaf from the cooling rack, its crust golden, its aroma intoxicating. "This is our signature loaf," David said, his voice soft with pride, offering it to her. "My great-grandmother's recipe. Been making it the same way for over 100 years. Want to try a piece?" Olivia paused, her gaze briefly flickering from her tablet to the bread, then back. "No thank you, Mr. Miller. I appreciate the offer, but I prefer to maintain focus during my inspections." Her tone was polite but firm, a clear boundary drawn between her professional world and David's personal one. David, ever the optimist, simply smiled, shrugged, and wrapped the loaf in parchment paper. "More for the regulars, then," he murmured, placing it gently on a shelf. He knew a lost cause when he saw one. This woman was a fortress of facts, impenetrable by sentiment. Just then, Lily bounded down the creaky wooden stairs from their apartment above, her bright floral dress a splash of color against the rustic backdrop of the bakery. She carried a crudely drawn crayon picture, her latest masterpiece. When she saw Olivia, a stranger in a sleek suit, she stopped, her curiosity winning over any shyness. "Daddy, who's that?" Lily asked, her voice a clear bell in the quiet of the afternoon. "This is Miss Olivia, Lily. She's here to look at the building," David explained, his voice softening immediately. Lily's eyes, wide and innocent, fixed on Olivia. "Are you buying our house?" Caught off guard by the direct question, she hesitated for a beat. She wasn't used to direct, unfiltered questions from children. I'm evaluating the property, dear," she stammered slightly, a rare moment of discomfort. Lily, undeterred, walked right up to Olivia and held out her drawing. It was a colorful, childlike rendition of Miller's hearth, complete with a smiling sun and tiny stick figures of David and Lily standing in the doorway. "I drew our bakery. It's the best one in the city. You can have it." Olivia looked from the drawing to Lily's earnest face, then to David, who stood watching with a gentle smile. She awkwardly accepted the paper, her analytical mind struggling to process this unexpected gesture. "Thank you, Lily. It's very colorful." She tried to sound appreciative, but the words felt hollow even to her own ears. She folded the drawing once, then again, tucking it into the pocket of her tailored blazer, more out of politeness than genuine interest.
As if on cue, the sky outside darkened abruptly. A low rumble of distant thunder vibrated through the old building. "Looks like a storm's brewing," David observed, glancing out the window. "A fast one, too." Olivia checked her watch. "I need to finish my exterior assessment quickly then. I have another meeting across town." She turned to leave, but before she could reach the door, a sudden, blinding flash of lightning illuminated the bakery, followed by a deafening crack that shook the very foundations of Miller's hearth. Then, utter silence. The lights flickered, groaned, and died. The hum of the refrigerator ceased. The quiet bakery was plunged into an unsettling gloom, illuminated only by the fading afternoon light filtering through the front windows. The city outside, usually a symphony of sound, went eerily silent. "Power outage," David said calmly, reaching for a lantern he kept near the counter. "Looks like the whole block. Happens sometimes during these sudden storms." Olivia stared at her tablet, now a lifeless black rectangle. "My phone has no signal. The entire grid must be down." Her voice, for the first time, held a note of genuine surprise, a crack in her composed facade. Just as David lit the lantern, casting flickering shadows across the room, Lily, who had been momentarily stunned by the sudden darkness, let out a small whimper. "Daddy, I don't like the dark." David immediately crouched, pulling Lily into a comforting hug. "It's okay, Bug. Daddy's right here. We'll light some candles and it'll be like a big sleepover. A fun adventure, right?" He looked at Olivia, his eyes filled with reassurance, a stark contrast to her own growing apprehension. Another, closer crack of thunder rattled the windows. The rain began to fall in sheets, drumming heavily against the roof. Olivia, glancing outside, saw that the street was now a chaotic mess of stalled cars and confused pedestrians, visibility dropping rapidly. Her meeting across town, her entire meticulously planned evening, was clearly impossible. "It seems I won't be able to leave," Olivia stated, more to herself than to David. She looked from the stormy chaos outside to Lily, now clinging to her father. Then her gaze returned to David, a realization dawning in her sharp eyes. Her voice, usually so confident, was laced with an unexpected awkwardness. "Given the circumstances, and Lily," she paused, clearly struggling with the words, stepping completely out of her comfort zone, "it appears we're both staying here with you tonight." The words hung in the air, the title of an unforeseen chapter in all their lives. David, the single father, felt a jolt of surprise. The formidable Olivia Hayes, agent of Apex Developments, was stuck. And not just her, but his daughter, Lily, was tied to her by the shared unexpected circumstance. He hadn't expected this turn of events, this abrupt intrusion of the corporate world into his quiet, humble life. He simply nodded, the lantern light reflecting the quiet determination in his eyes. "We'll figure it out, just like we always do." The initial hours of the power outage were a study in contrasts. Olivia, accustomed to total control, found herself adrift in a world without Wi-Fi, without GPS, without the glowing screen of her tablet. She paced the bakery, a caged tiger, attempting to gain a phone signal, checking her watch with increasing frustration. David, however, moved with an unhurried confidence. He located extra lanterns, lit beeswax candles, their soft glow transforming the bakery from a place of business into a cozy, flickering haven. Lily, reassured by her father's calm demeanor, was already embracing the adventure. Her initial fear gave way to wide-eyed wonder. "Daddy, can we tell stories by the fire?" asked Lily, pointing to the old brick oven that David usually only fired up for special batches of bread.
"An excellent idea, Bug," David said, already gathering kindling. "Miss Olivia, would you care for some hot tea? Or perhaps a hot chocolate for Lily? The oven takes a while to heat, but it'll keep us warm." Olivia stopped her pacing, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "You have a functional oven without electricity?" David chuckled softly. "It's a traditional wood-fired oven. Been here since the bakery opened in 1905. It's a bit of an art to keep it going, but it makes the best bread." He winked at Lily, who giggled. As David coaxed a fire to life in the ancient oven, Olivia found herself drawn to its warmth. The relentless rain outside hammered against the windows, isolating them further. She sat, prim and stiff, on one of the wooden benches, watching David and Lily. It was a scene so utterly alien to her experience that it felt like stepping into another century. "Why don't you have a generator, Mr. Miller?" Olivia asked, her analytical mind still seeking solutions, efficiencies. A business of this nature should have redundancy. David stirred a pot of water over the slowly growing flames. "A generator is expensive, Miss Olivia, and for the few times the power goes out, this old oven does the trick. Besides, it gives us a chance to slow down, remember what really matters." He glanced at Lily, who was now drawing contentedly on a napkin with a crayon. "What's the bottom line?" he asked, echoing Olivia's earlier catchphrase, but with a gentle irony that softened the question. Olivia paused, a rare moment of introspection. "The bottom line, Mr. Miller, is always profit, efficiency, risk mitigation." "And what about joy?" David asked, pouring hot chocolate into a mug for Lily. "What about the smell of fresh bread on a cold morning? What about a child's laughter? Do those have a place on your spreadsheets?" Olivia had no immediate answer. She watched as Lily, completely at ease, offered her hot chocolate to Olivia. "Do you want a sip, Miss Olivia? Daddy says hot chocolate makes everything better when it's rainy." Olivia, for a second time, was thrown off balance by Lily's unadulterated kindness. "No, thank you, Lily. You enjoy it." But she couldn't help but notice the warmth radiating from the mug, the genuine concern in Lily's eyes. As the evening wore on, the fire crackled, casting a warm glow. David, true to his word, told stories. Tales of old Miller's hearth, of the city's early days, of the bread that had fed generations. Lily nestled against him, occasionally interjecting with her own whimsical observations. Olivia, initially resistant, found herself listening. The rhythm of David's voice, the innocence of Lily's questions, slowly chipping away at her defenses. "Why do you only look at your phone, Miss Olivia?" Lily asked, looking up from her drawing. "Daddy says real strength isn't about how much money you have. It's about being kind."
Olivia froze. The innocent question was a direct hit. She opened her mouth to offer a corporate platitude, but no words came. David, ever gentle, interjected. "Lily, that's not polite." "It's all right, David," Olivia said, a faint flush creeping up her neck. She looked at Lily. "Your daddy is right, Lily. Kindness is a strength. I'm still learning that." The admission, quiet and halting, was a profound shift for her. Later, while Lily sketched another picture in the soft lamplight, Olivia found herself staring at the old, faded blueprints David had shown her earlier, the original construction plans for the bakery. Without her usual digital tools, she was restless, her analytical mind craving a puzzle. She picked up a magnifying glass David kept on his dusty desk and began to scrutinize the intricate details. "This property has quite the history, doesn't it?" Olivia murmured, tracing a line on the yellowed paper. "These plans are remarkably detailed for their age."
"My great-grandfather was meticulous," David said, his voice warm. "He believed a good building, like good bread, needed a strong foundation." Olivia's gaze fell upon a small, almost invisible inscription in the bottom corner of one of the blueprints. It was tiny, handwritten in faded ink, barely legible beneath the grime of decades. She leaned closer, adjusting the magnifying glass. It wasn't a structural note, nor an architectural detail. It was a date, a very old date, predating the recorded sale of the land to the Miller family by several decades, alongside a series of handwritten legal codes and references to an obscure city charter. Her brow furrowed. This was an anomaly. Her company's due diligence had shown a clear chain of title, but this implied something deeper, something potentially overlooked. Her professional instincts, sharp and unyielding, flared to life. She pulled out her own small physical notepad, a relic she carried for emergencies, and began to copy the cryptic inscription, her mind already racing through the implications. This wasn't just old architectural charm. This was potentially a critical legal detail, a hidden truth that could undermine Apex Development's entire acquisition strategy, a secret, perhaps, etched in the very foundation of Miller's hearth. She looked up at David, who was humming a lullaby to Lily, their faces bathed in the flickering firelight. A different kind of warmth filled the room, one she hadn't encountered in years. The numbers in her head, the profit margins and demolition costs, suddenly felt distant, insignificant. The piece of paper she'd just copied held power, yes, but the scene before her held something else entirely, something invaluable. The rain finally eased, and the distant hum of power returning to the city reached them, faint at first, then growing steadily louder. The bakery lights flickered, then blazed to life, harsh and bright after hours of candlelight. Olivia blinked, shielding her eyes, as her tablet and phone sprang to life with a chorus of notifications. The world, her world, was back, but something within her had irrevocably shifted. The paper with the cryptic inscription was still clutched in her hand, a tangible link between the old world and the new. The rain finally eased, and the distant hum of power returning to the city reached them, faint at first, then growing steadily louder. The bakery lights flickered, then blazed to life, harsh and bright after hours of candlelight. Olivia blinked, shielding her eyes, as her tablet and phone sprang to life with a chorus of notifications. The world, her world, was back, but something within her had irrevocably shifted. The paper with the cryptic inscription was still clutched in her hand, a tangible link between the old world and the new. "Power's back," David said, a hint of relief in his voice. Lily, momentarily disoriented by the sudden brightness, clapped her hands. "Yay! Now we can watch cartoons!" Olivia barely registered their excitement. Her mind was a whirlwind of legal codes, historical documents, and the damning implication of what she'd found. This was bigger than she'd initially realized. The inscription hinted at a nearly forgotten city charter, one that granted perpetual occupancy rights to certain historic family businesses whose roots predated the city's formal zoning laws, a charter specifically designed to protect cornerstone establishments like Miller's Hearth. If this was true, Apex Developments had no legal right to forcibly acquire, let alone demolish, this property. Their entire multi-million-dollar project was built on a flawed foundation. Olivia's phone vibrated urgently. It was Mr. Sterling, her boss, the ruthless CEO of Apex Developments. His calls were rarely good news, always demands. She looked at David, then at Lily, who was already running towards the television, her back to them. The choice, stark and uncompromising, lay before her. She could suppress the information, dismiss it as an insignificant historical anomaly, and push through with the demolition. It would secure Apex's profit, safeguard her career, and earn her Sterling's approval. Or she could reveal the truth, risking everything she had worked for. Olivia took a deep breath, the scent of stale flour and warm bread suddenly heavy with meaning. She answered the phone, her voice regaining its professional steel, but with a subtle tremor David, observing her, noticed. "Hayes, status report." Sterling's voice boomed through the receiver, impatient and demanding. I assume the evaluation is complete. Send me the final report. We're moving to acquisition phase next week." Olivia's gaze swept over the bakery, the worn counters, the generations of character etched into the wood, the lingering warmth of the oven. She thought of David's quiet resilience, Lily's innocent drawing tucked into her blazer pocket, the simple wisdom of buildings should stay up. She thought of the loneliness of her own ambition, the empty satisfaction of purely material success. "Mr. Sterling," Olivia began, her voice clear and resonant, "the evaluation is complete, and I've uncovered a significant issue." "Issue? What issue?" "Don't tell me the old fool's trying to hold out for more money. We'll offer him triple market value," Sterling scoffed. "It's not about money, sir," Olivia countered, her voice gaining strength, conviction. "It's about a historical city charter, a perpetual occupancy right linked to this specific property, predating its recorded sale. Miller's Hearth is legally protected from acquisition. We have no grounds for demolition." Silence crackled on the other end of the line, a silence far more ominous than the recent power outage. David, hearing the shift in Olivia's tone, the sudden intensity of her words, turned to face her, a question in his eyes. "What in God's name are you talking about, Hayes? Perpetual occupancy? That's ancient history. Our legal team cleared the title." Sterling's voice was now laced with fury. "They missed it, sir. It's a subtle clause, often overlooked, but it's binding. And if we try to proceed, we'll face not only a public relations nightmare, but potentially a costly legal battle that could tie up the entire project for years. The backlash from the community alone would be catastrophic for Apex." Olivia articulated the facts with chilling precision, presenting not just a moral argument, but a pragmatic financial one. "You're telling me you found a loophole that completely derails a $100 million project because of some antiquated piece of paper and a sentimental bakery?" Sterling roared, incredulous. "I'm telling you I found the truth, sir. The bottom line is this property is not ours to take, and attempting to do so would be far more damaging to Apex's reputation and finances than adapting our plans." Olivia held her breath, her heart pounding. She had laid out her cards, risked everything. Sterling's next words came, sharp as a knife. "You're fired, Hayes. Effective immediately. I'll send a new team to handle this. They won't be swayed by charming anecdotes or crayon drawings." Olivia didn't flinch. In fact, a strange sense of liberation washed over her. "Sir," she said, her voice calm and steady, "you might want to check the addendum to my most recent contract. It includes a clause about ethical project management and uncovering material risks, a clause I insisted upon after our last project's PR challenges. I have documented every step of this discovery, including a preliminary legal opinion from an independent firm confirming the validity of the charter. And if you attempt to dismiss me for acting with integrity, I'm confident my legal team will ensure this antiquated piece of paper becomes a very public, very expensive problem for Apex developments." Silence. Then a defeated, choked sound from Sterling. He knew she had him. Olivia, the sharp analytical evaluator, had anticipated his ruthlessness and built her own defense. "What do you propose, Hayes?" Sterling finally ground out, his voice seething with reluctant defeat.
"I propose we pivot," Olivia stated, her voice now brimming with a new kind of ambition, one aligned with integrity. "We save Miller's Hearth, integrate it as a historic centerpiece, and redesign the surrounding development to reflect a commitment to community and heritage, not just profit. We rebrand the project. We don't demolish. We preserve and innovate. It will be a triumph, Mr. Sterling. A different kind of triumph, perhaps, but one that will earn Apex far more long-term goodwill and value than any luxury condo tower ever could." She ended the call, the silence in the bakery now filled with a palpable tension. David stared at her, utterly stunned, processing the rapid-fire exchange he'd only half understood. He saw the fire in her eyes, the resolve that had nothing to do with personal gain and everything to do with something he recognized as truth. "Olivia, what just happened?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Olivia turned to him, a faint, genuine smile finally gracing her lips. "What happened, David, is that Miller's Hearth is safe, and I think I just found a new bottom line." The revelation of the city charter, thanks to Olivia's sharp eye and newfound integrity, sent ripples through Apex developments. Sterling, true to his nature, initially fought, but Olivia's meticulous documentation and strategic foresight left him no choice.
Facing a potential legal and public relations catastrophe, he reluctantly agreed to her revised proposal, a groundbreaking project that would preserve Miller's Hearth as a historic landmark, integrating it into a reimagined district focused on community, local businesses, and sustainable development. The metamorphosis of the old district began. Architects and urban planners worked closely with David and other local business owners, crafting a vision where tradition and modernity coexisted harmoniously. Miller's Hearth became the beating heart of the new Heritage Square, its brick facade now gleaming, its interior renovated with respect for its history, and its ovens baking more bread than ever before. Olivia, no longer just an evaluator, was appointed the director of this new Heritage Projects division at Apex, a role she embraced with a passion that had been missing from her previous purely profit-driven endeavors. She moved with purpose, her ambition now tempered with a profound sense of meaning. She walked through the bustling construction sites, not just seeing structures, but envisioning homes, businesses, and communities thriving. On the grand opening day of Heritage Square, the air was alive with celebration. Ribbon-cutting ceremonies, local musicians, and the irresistible aroma of David's fresh bread filled the air. David, beaming, handed out samples, his hands flour-dusted, his heart full. Lily, now an honorary tour guide, led visitors through the bakery, proudly pointing out her dad's new expanded workspace. Olivia stood near the entrance to Miller's Hearth, watching the joyful chaos. She caught David's eye, and he walked over, a warm smile on his face. "Never thought I'd see the day this old place was the star of a grand opening," David said, his voice laced with emotion. "Thank you, Olivia, for everything." "You saved it yourself, David," Olivia replied, her gaze softening. "I just helped you expose the truth. This place, it taught me a lot about what real value is." She reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a slightly crumpled piece of paper. It was Lily's drawing of the bakery, the one with the smiling sun and the stick figures. "I keep it as a reminder," she said, a small, genuine smile on her face. A reminder that some things are worth more than any spreadsheet can calculate. Just then, Lily ran up to them, her face flushed with excitement. "Daddy, Miss Olivia, guess what? Mr. Henderson from the new bookshop next door says my drawing of a flying baker could be a mural on his wall."
A flying baker? Olivia chuckled, her eyes sparkling. That sounds like a project for our new Heritage Projects division. "Can Daddy help too?" Lily asked, looking from Olivia to David. "He's really good at making things stay up." Olivia glanced at David, a hopeful, unspoken question in her eyes. "I was hoping he'd consider being my partner on a few more staying-up projects, actually." David met her gaze, a warmth spreading through his chest. The initial jolt of their unexpected encounter, the confusion of her evaluation, had given way to something profound. He had seen Olivia at her most guarded, her most vulnerable, and now at her most transformed. He saw not just the sharp, ambitious businesswoman, but the woman who had chosen integrity over profit, the woman who carried Lily's drawing in her pocket. "We'll figure it out, just like we always do," David said, echoing his old catchphrase. But this time it felt like a promise whispered to the future, a future they would build together. Months turned into a year. Heritage Square flourished, a testament to a different kind of development. Langford and Miller Associates became the new standard, with Olivia leading its vision and David providing the foundational wisdom and practical expertise. They collaborated on projects that genuinely served their city, transforming neglected spaces into vibrant community hubs, always with a focus on preserving local character and ensuring housing for working families. Lily, thriving in her expanding world, still spent her afternoons at the bakery, but now she also visited Olivia's office, offering consulting on color schemes for new community centers or critiquing architectural models with the seriousness of a seasoned client. Her innocent, unfiltered observations continued to ground Olivia, reminding her of the true bottom line. Months turned into a year. Heritage Square flourished, a testament to a different kind of development. Langford and Miller Associates became the new standard, with Olivia leading its vision and David providing the foundational wisdom and practical expertise. They collaborated on projects that genuinely served their city, transforming neglected spaces into vibrant community hubs, always with a focus on preserving local character and ensuring housing for working families. Lily, thriving in her expanding world, still spent her afternoons at the bakery, but now she also visited Olivia's office, offering consulting on color schemes for new community centers or critiquing architectural models with the seriousness of a seasoned client. Her innocent, unfiltered observations continued to ground Olivia,
reminding her of the true bottom line. On a crisp autumn evening, after a long day of meetings and site visits, David and Olivia sat on a bench in the bustling Heritage Square courtyard, watching the last of the sun dip behind Miller's hearth. Lily was playing tag with other children in the revived community space, their laughter echoing through the brick archways. Olivia leaned her head on David's shoulder. I still can't believe this is real, that this place, this life, it started with a power outage and a little girl's crayon drying. Life has a way of showing you what you need, even when you're not looking for it, David said, his arm gently wrapping around her. And sometimes, Olivia added, her voice soft with reflection, you realize that what you thought was a problem was actually the universe trying to save you from yourself. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. Thank you, David, for opening your door to me, for showing me that true strength isn't just about building empires, but about building community, about kindness, and about, well, making sure buildings stay up for the people who need them. That's the job, David said, pulling her closer. Always. He watched Lily, a tiny, joyful blur, chase her friends through the square, under the protective gaze of Miller's hearth. Buildings should stay up, and with love, partnership, and a stubborn commitment to doing the right thing, they always would. It wasn't the story Olivia had expected when she arrived for a final evaluation, nor the life David had envisioned in his quiet bakery, but it was exactly what both of them needed, a foundation built on integrity, community, and the surprising, transformative power of a single father's unwavering heart. It was, in every sense of the word, home.